In this tutorial, we're going to go completely unscripted and build an AI resume, or CV, screening application. And we're going to do that in make.com, and we're going to use a few different apps within it. The main one being the OpenAI API. So you get to work with it directly and do something pretty cool with it. Now, this is an unscripted video. So if we run into issues, we're going to solve them on the fly, just like you would if you were starting out and building something like this. You run into issues, you troubleshoot them, and you figure out a solution. So this is what we're going to build. And as you can see on the screen in front of you, this is actually the finished make.com automation. So we're going to start from scratch, but I just wanted to show you what the flow will look like right at the beginning of this video before we dive in, just so you have an idea as we go through each step on a fresh canvas, what we're working towards. Now, before we dive in, there are a few websites, apps that you're going to have to set up accounts for. First of all, Dropbox, then CloudConvert, and you're going to have to create an OpenAI platform, OpenAI API account, and you'll probably need to top that up a little bit. I think the minimum is $10, but you'll need to check. And Airtable, an account. Everything is free to use, apart from the OpenAI API. Now, I do remember initially they used to give some free credits for new users of the API. I'm not too sure if they still do now, but that's something you'll need to check. We're going to create connections to all of those apps in make.com. So you're going to have an Airtable connection using the personal access token. You're going to have to insert your CloudConvert API key. We're going to use the free account for CloudConvert, so no issues there. You're going to have to connect Dropbox, and as I touched on, OpenAI API, you're going to have to connect that as well. Now, we're going to go through this step by step as we build the project, so you don't need to set that up right yet. I just wanted to show you that they do appear in your Make account on the left-hand side. And as mentioned, you want to create a Dropbox account. What I've done is create an account, and I've created a folder within the account called Resumes. And I've inserted a resume from Canva. I just downloaded one of the templates. Really basic, as you can see here. A lot of it is just dummy information, but it's enough for us to work with in this automation that we're going to create. The Airtable, you'll need to create this before we start working in make.com, and you'll want to create something similar to this. So I've literally named it the same as the make.com automation, AI resume screening. I've created a table called table, and within that a grid. And I've created several columns, so name, email, LinkedIn, recent job title, recent employer, key achievement, key skill, recent education place, recent education course, location, resume, and relevancy score. And I've also selected what data type they are. So this is a single line text. This is an email. And as you're creating these columns, you'll be able to select these yourself. So as you can see, there's various different data types that you'll be able to select. So that's what I've done. I've selected all the data types. LinkedIn is obviously a link. Resume, that is a file or an attachment, sorry. And relevancy score is a number. But everything else is a single line text. As I touched on, you'll need to create an account at the OpenAI platform to get your API keys. And you'll need to create an account at CloudConvert. And like I said, everything we're using is free, apart from the OpenAI API, which you'll just need to double check. Now that I've covered that, let's get started building the resume screening AI automation. So I'll go to scenarios. This is the one I've already built, but we're going to start a new one. So let's click create a new scenario. And we're going to start off by importing or adding the application that's going to kick off this whole automation. So this is the trigger, and that is going to be Dropbox. So if you just type in Dropbox, you'll then be able to see which triggers you can select. For us, we want to select watch files. So this is going to watch files in a certain directory, so folder path in our Dropbox account. Now I've already connected my Dropbox account, hence you'll see here my Dropbox connection, which can be named anything. For example, you can name it your name, Dropbox connection, and so on. It's just that I've made it super simple and called it my Dropbox connection. So you will have to connect that when you first put in the Dropbox scenario or application onto the canvas in make.com. It's very simple to connect, and if you do have any issues, make.com have some great guides, but it's very straightforward. So once you've connected that, you'll then need to go to the folder search method, and from here we'll want to ensure that select from list is selected, and then below that we now need to define the folder path, and this is the folder that I showed you where that dummy CV that I got from Canva was stored. So if I just select that, it's going to get all the folders in my Dropbox account. I only have one, and that's resumes. Simple as that. Watch also subfolders. We don't have any subfolders inside the resumes folder, so no. And I'm going to ensure that the limit is set to 1. So that means 1 is the maximum number of results that will be worked through during each execution cycle. So if a new resume lands in the resumes folder in Dropbox, the limit is 1. It's not going to run 10 in one go. With that done, we can click save. And we can now choose where it starts from. So for the purposes of our project, and you can also do this, I'll just click from now on. Now the next part of this tutorial. Now I'm going to look at the previous build that I created and reference it, just so as I'm building it along with you, we're not going off track. And I'm building exactly the previous thing that I built, and it's easier for you then to follow along. And like I said, this is unscripted. So I want to run into as few issues as possible, but if we do run into issues, we're going to troubleshoot them together. So now that we've got the Dropbox watch files, let's say scenario or application on our canvas, the next one that we'll want to add is also Dropbox, but this one is the download a file function. And this downloads a file from a specific folder, and that will be our resumes folder. Now you want to put that into canvas, and you'll want to make sure that it's attached to the previous one, so you have the flow of data throughout each application. Now if we just open that, you'll see at the top the connection. So like I said, you would have at this stage already connected Dropbox, and I have. So we see my Dropbox connection at the top. Now we move on to the next part, which is way of selecting files. Now what I want to do here is select map a file path, and then in the file path I want to select one of the variables that Dropbox provides for us, and I'm going to select path lower. Now we don't see any example data here, for example name folder, we don't see anything next to it, but once we've created this automation or created parts of it and you run the automation, that will populate with the data that's generated. So these variables obviously hold particular data, and you'll be able to see that data once we run this application. That's fantastic for troubleshooting. So if you do run into any issues, you'll be able to see where the issue is. For example, if you're not getting the right variable or passing along the right variable in this flow that we're creating. So once you've selected path lower, what you'll then want to do is click save. And the next part in our application is not Dropbox related, it is CloudConvert related. So let's just click add another module, and then we'll find CloudConvert in the exhaustive list of applications on make.com. So once you've found it and it's the verified one, just click CloudConvert. And what we'll want to do is select or find the convert a file function. And that converts a file into a selected output that we want. So I'll click into that, And again, I've already created and connected my CloudConvert API key with my make.com account, hence why the connection's created. But if you haven't, you will need to create that connection, which is as simple as getting an API key and entering it in when you're prompted. But once you've done that, you'll then be able to define all the settings for this function. So I'm just going to move the screen along so it's not so cut off and it's a bit more centered and easy to read. So what we want to do here are a few things. So first, input file. What we'll want to do is upload a file, and that's going to be the Dropbox file from when we downloaded it. And as you can see, once you click upload a file, you then get given the option to select the file. So we're going to make sure that Dropbox downloader file is selected. So that is getting the file from this previous function. Once you've done that, under convert options and format, we want to select the input format because we know that it's a PDF that we're inputting. So let's find PDF in the input format. Once we've done that, we'll then be able to select the output format. And I want to get the output as a JPEG. And that, as you'll see, as we build this out and we get to the OpenAI API stage, that will allow us to input this resume into the API call for OpenAI, and it will then be able to analyze it and do everything that we need to do. But let's not get ahead of ourselves and continue going from where we are. So output format, we want it as a JPEG, and file name, we'll want to do something here with the functions that make.com provide. And we want to insert the replace function, and I'll explain it as I go through it. But let's just find the replace function, which we can see here under text and binary functions. And if we can find replace, which is just there, we can then go through and replace exactly what I want to. So first, what I want to do is insert the file name from the download a file output. So I want to replace this file name. I want to replace the end of the file name. So I want to replace the .pdf with .jpeg. Simple as that. And that will take care of that for us. And once we've done that, all we need to do is ensure that download a file, which we don't need to do, is set as no and click save. So far, what we've done is set up a trigger, we've downloaded a file, and we've now converted it. And to be honest, this is a lot of sometimes what people need to do. They have a folder of a bunch of files or files that regularly get inputted into this folder, and they need to convert it. And you can find these file converter websites online very easily, like if you just type it in Google, like PDF to JPEG or JPEG to PDF converter. But if you want to automate it, this is a very simple way to do it. But let's move on now. And now we get to the interesting part. And the part I'm sure that most of you have been waiting for. So yeah, if you do get this error, like I said, up here, well, it's just disappeared now. Don't worry too much about it because we haven't run the automation yet. So the next module that we'll want to add is OpenAI. So we'll want to find that. And the actual function that we want to add here is analyze images, which is where it's there. So analyze images and in brackets vision. Again, just make sure it's connected to the previous module. Sorry for all the moving around. I just want to make sure that we're centered so it's easy for you to see as we work through it. Okay, so connection. Again, mine is already connected as I've mentioned several times, but you will need to connect this and add in your own API key. But once you've done that, you'll see what I see on my screen now. And we're starting from this blank canvas. That I will need to reference my other screen here because I have a prompt that you can just copy and paste. It's a little bit lengthy, but it gets everything and it does everything that we need it to do. So to begin, yeah, we have the prompt, and this is the instructions with the API call. So I'm gonna type the prompt out, and please feel free, and like if you're creating this as a test, just copy this prompt word from word. So the prompt is get these data points from the resume. First data point, name. I'm just going to copy the bullet point. Second data point, email. Then LinkedIn. Then recent job title. Recent employer. Key achievement. Key skill. Recent education place. Recent education course. And finally, location. And you'll notice that a lot of these are similar to the columns that we created in Airtable. So you're going to slowly start to see it come all together now. Now, that's not the prompt finished. We have another part of the prompt, which is output the data points as a key value pair. So this just structures the return we get from the OpenAI API call. And I'm going to do this as follows. Again, I'm just going to copy the bullet point and we can go from there. So we want name. And that's going to be, the value is going to be name. So the key is first, then it's a value. It's a programming term, and if you're familiar with even a little bit of programming, JavaScript, any language, you have key value pairs. So you know what? Let's just do it like this. It'll be a lot easier to save you watching me type it out. So email, and the value is email. LinkedIn. And the value is LinkedIn. Let's just copy all of these. I can format it as I want. So we're going to have recent job title. So that, oops, made a little mistake there. As you can see, when everything's unscripted and you're just going off the cuff, you do make mistakes. But so does everyone when they're building something, especially when you're building it new. So if you're going through this, you will make mistakes and you're just going to have to troubleshoot as you go along. But I hope this tutorial helps. So recent job title, recent employer, key achievement, key skill, recent education place, recent education course, and location. So these are the keys that we want as an output. Now if I just add in the colon, and then I can just copy these and I'll do the double quotations for each of them. And there are some on a side note as I'm doing this, just so you don't get bored watching me copy and paste. There are a lot of interesting prompts out there that you can use to get certain outputs from the likes of ChatGPT, Anthropic, whether you're using the chat interface or the API. But one thing I will say is that not all, just because a prompt is very specific and very detailed, it doesn't mean it's going to be the answer to getting what you want. I've created a lot of prompts and done a lot of things with these with the API and prompted in certain ways, but sometimes it still has a tendency to make things up and sound very convincing. But it does a lot of things extremely well, and those are the things that I really want to showcase. So now that we've done that, we've created the key value pairs. So we've told it what data points to get, and we've told it how we want the output. Now that's done, we can move on. And now what we want to do is go into images. So we want to click add an image, and under image 1, it says, how would you like to specify an image? We want to select image URL. And if we click into image URL, we'll be given variables from all of the modules up until now. And what we'll want to insert for the image URL is the temporary URL from CloudConvert. As simple as that. Model, I'm going to use GPT-4o. It's perfectly sufficient for what we're doing, and I'll leave the max completion tokens at 2048. We could change this around, we could increase it, decrease it, but it's outside the scope of the tutorial. And to be totally honest, this project works perfectly fine with it set to default. And I've tried it with a variety of different resumes, and it's performed adequately. So with that done, we can then click save. And then we can move on to our next module that we're going to add. And this again is another OpenAI API call. So this is an API call, and we're going to make another one now. So again, OpenAI, but this time the one that we'll need to find is this one right at the top, nice and easy. Transform text to structured data. Now, I just want to quickly go back to the previous one where we created the prompt. So as you'll see, we asked for a specific output. We wanted the output as a key value pair. Now we could have left it just as that, but to add, let's say, an extra layer of validity to make it more valid, or to make this more robust, we do want that data to be strictly formatted. And so we want to transform that text to structured data, and there is an endpoint in the OpenAI API that we can use, which is fantastic. So you would have at this point created your connection to OpenAI, so that'll be fine. And then you'll have these settings show, so model, text to parse, prompt, and so on. So let's go through these and set this up. So model, I'm just going to select GPT-4o. Now at the time of creating this tutorial, I have experimented with 4.1 and so on for different things. It's more expensive, the API call to it. So that's one thing to note. There is a different price per X amount of tokens based on which model you're using. So API endpoint model. GPT-4o is sufficient for this. Of course, if you had a lot more complex uses, or GPT 4.1 maybe, but it really depends. But like I said, 4.40 has been perfectly sufficient for this. So keep that as the model selected. And then text to parse will want to enter the output, the return that came from the previous OpenAI API call, so the analyze images vision module that we added. Now, like I said, you won't be able to see the output of the variables because we haven't run the automation, but once you've run it, you will be able to see them next to it. But I'll tell you exactly where the text to parse will be in the return API call. So you'll want to make sure, of course, that you're looking at the OpenAI module that we created just a moment ago. And then you'll want to expand choices. And then you'll want to expand message. And it's here, the content, which is where the output will be. So the text, the output that we wanted, that key value pair, that's where it will be stored. And for this, we're going to write a very simple and straightforward prompt. We don't need nothing complicated here. So convert key value pairs to JSON. Straightforward, clear, and simple. Now we're going to go through the structured data definition. This is probably going to be the longest part of this video because we're going to have to define the 10 data points that we have. So without any further ado, and without any more rambling, let's get started and define each one. So for data definition 1, the parameter name will be name. The description will be name on resume. And the data type will be a text or a string. And then we'll give it some value examples. So click add value example. And value example will be John Doe. And then is parameter required? We want that to be set to true. Now we're going to do this for each data point, like location, the previous employer, and so on. But before I run through the rest with you, I just want to go over again what I've done, just so you have a little bit of context and it's not just you watching me go through a build and a walkthrough without explaining what I'm doing. I don't think there would be much value in that. So to begin, we define the parameter name, which we set as name. So this will be the applicant's name on the resume. And you don't need to select the variables that pop up when you go into this screen. We just enter the parameter name that we want, which is name. Description, this is a description of the data point and its name on resume. You can of course change this. You can change name to something else. You can change the description to something else, but I just thought it's easy and it's clear to read and it's understandable. And data type, which is pretty self-explanatory, it's text. Now, if you are parsing other documents, this might be something else. You might be having a number data type or a Boolean, like a true false or 0, 1. So yeah, that's the data type. But for us, it's straightforward. It's text. And then I've just given it a value example. And the more examples as you provide, as you can see in this short text here, the more examples you provide, the more accurate that the output is going to be. Now, as our use case isn't extremely difficult for an AI model of this caliber, we only need to provide one example. And to be honest, even if I didn't provide an example, I'm sure it would probably perform perfectly fine. But it's good for me to show you this, so if you do end up creating something a bit more complex with what we're going through, you know to include an example. Okay, so now that's the first one done, let's move on to the rest. So the second one, so I'm just going to minimize this, otherwise it gets a tad confusing. So the second data definition is going to be email, so the parameter name. And the description is email on resume. And the data type for that will be text. And I'll add a value example, and the value example will be, let's write John_Doe at gmail.com. And is parameter required? Yes, again. That's done. Let's move on to data definition 3. This one is going to be LinkedIn. And I'll write the description, LinkedIn on resume. Data type for this, seeing as we don't have a link data type, we're just going to select text. And I'll give a value example. So let's say https linkedin.com, if I can spell .com correctly, /in John Doe. So that's the example for the link, and again, is parameter required? Yes. Let's move on. Data definition 4. This is going to be recent job title. Now, there's a reason why I've put these together. You can't actually have spaces in the parameter name. If you do, you're going to get an error. You can have underscores, but I've just put them together and capitalized the first letter of each word. So recent job title, and then for this, we'll try most recent job title, On resume, again, data type is text. Value example, let's say product manager. Is parameter required? Most certainly. So that's data definition 4 done. Only 6 more to go. So data definition 5, recent employer. Description, let's write recent employer on resume. Data type, let's enter text. Value example, nice and easy, let's just write Amazon. Everyone knows Amazon, very straightforward. Is parameter required? Yes. Data definition 6. So now what we want to write is key achievement. Description, let's just write, we could write something complex here, but let's just write something like created an ETL, extract, transform, load, pipeline to process over 1 million data points of property data. Completely made that up. It could be anything. Probably best just to look at a resume or your own and just whack something in. Just something that you can put as... Actually, I made a mistake here. So this is what I meant at the start, where sometimes as you're going through a build, you are going to make mistakes and you are going to get confused. And I did just mention a moment ago that I'm minimizing the data definitions because we're going through quite a few and it gets a little bit complicated, just kind of recognizing all the fields. So that is actually in the wrong place. It should be an example. The description for this should be key achievement on resume. The data type, of course, is text. And now this is the example. So let's just paste that in. And is parameter required? Yes. With that done, we can move on to data definition 7, which is key skill. And the description is key skill on resume. Data type again is text. Value example, let's write Python. Let's just write some programming languages. Make it easy on ourselves. JavaScript, Go, C++, and let's write alpine.js. Straightforward. Is parameter required? Yes. Again, all of these will be parameter required. We're nearly there, so hold on and stick with me. Data definition 8, recent education place. And here we're going to write recent education place on resume. Data type text. Value example. Let's write something everyone knows. Oxford University. Is parameter required? Yes. Data definition 9. This is going to be recent education course. Recent education course. Description. Recent education course on resume. On resume, data type is text. And the value example, let's write computer science. It's the first one that came to mind. And is parameter required? Yes. And now the final one, which I'm sure you're extremely happy about. I know I am. It's a lot of repetition in this part. The final parameter name is location. Description will be location on resume. Data type text. Value example, let's write Dublin. And is parameter required? Yes. And now that we've done that, what we can now do very happily is click save. So now that will transform the text that we had from the previous function here, analyze images vision. That'll transform that to structured data, which is something we'll need, as you'll see. We've got 2 more scenarios or modules that we need to add now and work with. So first we have the final OpenAI API one. And the one we need here is create a completion. Let that open, and of course you would have created your connection by now, so you won't have any issues here. So you'll have all the options to customize. So let's start from the top. So we have select a method, and you'll just want to make sure that legacy is not selected. It shouldn't be, but just make sure it isn't. So create a chat completion. Model, I'm just going to use the GPT-4o system model. Like I said, it's worked perfectly fine for this project. And now we're going to have to define the message, which does involve creating another prompt. But you can just copy it word from word. And as you get more familiar with it, with the working with prompts, if you haven't already, or if you're creating a specific automation in make.com, you can just edit the prompt in a similar-ish way. So let's start writing the prompt, and you can just copy this word from word. So role. Now there's no particular reason I'm putting asterisks around role. It doesn't do anything in particular in terms of when the request is sent to the OpenAI API. It's more of a formatting thing, but it also clearly separates each part of the prompt. So role, then bullet point. Let's say the role that we want this user in this API call to have is to be of let's say senior technology recruiter based in, where can we say, we've used Dublin, we've used Oxford University, let's pick somewhere else. So let's say Toronto, Canada. So that's the role that we want to set. Now we can move on to profile. So as you can see, a lot of this is specific to our use case, which is the AI resume screening automation. So the profile of, let's say, the person that we're looking for a role that we're hiring for. Let's say we're hiring for a junior fintech Python programmer in Toronto, Canada. And let's also say that they need to have proficiency in Python, Flask, and Go. I'm just going to copy these bullet points. It makes things a lot easier for me. So yeah, let's say they have to have proficiency in those 3. And then let's write fintech experience is an advantage. And let's write university education required. And the next part, what we're going to do is set the instruction for the prompt. Like, what do we actually want it to do with this information? So what we'll want to do is write the following. Only output a relevance score, and then in brackets we'll write 0 to 100 based on candidate fit to the role. Example, let's say 72. Now this makes a big difference by writing, for example, only, and then giving an example as we've done. If you don't do that, please feel free to experiment with this. I've done it. You'll generally get a text reply, which will also include the number, but then that throws everything else off. For example, when we want to send this data to our Airtable database, and then it says this candidate is scored at 62. We don't want that, we just want the number. So by just being a little bit more specific in your prompt, which is more of a writing skill than anything, just being more specific in what you want really helps with the return you get. So now that we've done that, let's add the context. So the context for this, I'll just close that again, but it's opened again. The context for this is the following. Candidate summary is below. Candidate, let me just close. Candidate resume is attached. And now what I'm going to do is insert that data that we have. And I'll explain why in just a moment once I've done it. So name, we're going to insert name from the transform text to structured data output. Email, we're going to insert the email. Not directly necessary for this, but I'm going to insert it anyway. Similarly with LinkedIn, not directly relevant to get a relevancy score. Recent job title is. And yeah, as I'm doing this, let me just talk through a little bit of a side note thing. This is a little bit similar to an ATS system which recruiters use. So if you've, I'm sure you have, if you've applied for jobs and a lot of the times you don't hear anything back, it's often not, it's not because that you're unqualified, because a lot of people do meet a lot of requirements for the jobs, and jobs are quite varied. It's not just what's on the job description. It's simply because the system that they use for filtering, this ATS system, there's various of them, there's softwares out there. They basically are just looking for certain keywords or certain places that you've worked, and if you don't meet the requirement, you don't get through to the next stage, and you don't get your resume seen by a human. So a lot of people and a lot of recruiters do help people with creating ATS friendly resumes simply for this person, simply for this reason. Now, whether that's right or wrong, not for me to say, but just so you understand, I mean, I'm sure you already do, but just so you understand that this is kind of a very mini version of an ATS. Now, if you hate ATS systems, this is probably not the best project to build out, but at least maybe now you understand how they work just a little bit more. And that brings me to the final part, which is location. So all of this data is going to be part of the user prompt that gets sent to the OpenAI API call once we make it. So this is setting the instructions, the role, the profile, in order to get the relevancy score that we want back. So we're saying to the API, we say, okay, here's the data that we're sending you, and here's the resume image attached, which we're going to get to in just a second. And here's what we want. Here's the role that you should be playing. Here's the profile of a person we're looking for. And here's the instruction, what we want you to do. Like, we don't want the output from this to be an essay on why this person is a good fit or not a good fit. We just want the relevancy score, which is what we've set. And we've got some additional context saying, okay, the summary is below and the resume is attached. So let's get to attaching that resume. So what we'll want to do is scroll down, and there you'll see image input type, and we'll want to select URL. That'll open, and then we'll want to select the temporary URL from the output of the CloudConvert function, and just leave image detail set to auto, and max completion tokens, as we did earlier, just leave it as default at 2048, and then we can click save. And now that brings me to the final part of this build, which is Airtable. So we'll need to go to add, find Airtable, click on it, and then find the create a record function and just add that in there. Now let me just move along and then I'll open it up so you can see exactly what I'm doing. So maybe you have already used the make.com and you have Airtable connected. If you don't, you'll be prompted to connect it now with your personal access token. So once you've created that connection, this is what you're going to see. So you're going to have to select a base, and a base, you can look at it like a spreadsheet on Google Sheets. It's probably the easiest way to describe it if you haven't worked with Airtable. Although Airtable is a lot more powerful and there's a lot going on there and there's a lot you can do with it. But yeah, this is our Airtable tutorial. So base, you'll want to select the base that you have in Airtable, which I showed you at the start of this video, which was AI resume screening. Once you've done that, you'll want to select the table that's within that base, and I just named mine table to keep it really simple. And then once you've done that, you'll see each column within that table appear. In this case, it's called a record. But as you can see, every column that I showed you at the start, and you might have been wondering, why is he just naming every single column that he's written? This is the reason why. So you can see that it populates here, and what we're going to do now is very straightforward. We're just going to map the output from various of these functions that we created into the database. So for name, what we want to insert here from the transform text to structured data is name. In email, we want email. In LinkedIn, we want LinkedIn. In recent job title, we want recent job title. Recent employer, we want recent employer. Key achievement, key skill, recent education place, similarly, recent education course, the same, and the same with location. And you'll see by creating clearly named variables and wording it very explicitly and clearly, it just really helps. I just start building more complex things. Now, for resume, remember this is going to be an attachment, so a file that we're going to put into Airtable. And if you were a recruiter, of course, you'd want access to this information, but perhaps you'd also want access to the actual resume that the person submitted. It would be useful just to review it. So you'll want to make sure that's expanded, and for file URL, you'll want to find the CloudConvert function and click temporary URL. And then for file name, just simply insert the file name. And then for relevancy score, we can scroll back up. And then where we see create a completion, so from the previous OpenAI or the last OpenAI API call, we can insert that. So you'll be able to find that output if you expand choices. And then if you expand message and select content. Now, like I've said several times, you won't see the variables appear just yet. But once we've run this, and then if you do want to edit it, for example, if something's not working the way you want it to work, you'll be able to see what data is in each variable and kind of move things around so they work more for you. Now, once that is done, we can click save. And that is now built. So what I'm going to do is run this and let's see if it works. So after however long this has taken to build out, I don't know the exact time. I haven't been timing it. Let's see if it works. So I'm going to click run once. Now I have a feeling because that resume was already in there, it might not have grabbed it. So I might have to re-upload it. But what we can do, if we go over to Airtable, we can see. Now, as we can see, it hasn't added it in. And the reason why is because I created a test previously and it already processed this PDF. And if you remember initially, when we set up the make.com automation, it said, when do you want to start from? And we clicked from now on. So it's excluded this resume. So all I need to do is I'll just simply delete it. And then I'll re-upload it. So I'll delete that, and if I just expand my downloads, and then I get the resume from here, I can re-upload it. So let's see if that re-uploads. Maybe not. Let's try it again. I might need to do it the old school way. I might need to click into the folder. So it might be just lagging a bit. So let's see, resumes. No, I will need to upload it the old-fashioned way. So if I find the resume, the name on the resume, which I've completely forgot already, was Loris. There we go. So Loris, so that's uploading. So that's uploaded now, and just for my OCD, I'm going to rename this. Let's rename it to V2 Loris Moretti. And that's completely just because of personal preference that I've named it like this. Now let's go back to make. So the AI, this is the initial one that we created, but this is the one we've created now. So let's do that, and now let's click run once, and now it will process. So as you can see, the circles around the functions, that means it's processing. Last time it did it a bit too quick, hence I was a bit suspicious. I was like, nah, I'm not sure it's run because I used that file before. But I'll open up these variables after, once I've shown you that it's working. So you can see what it looks like when data is inputted to. And I think this is a good thing for you to see actually, because if you have already done a test like I did before creating this video, you can't use the same resume or the same file if at the start you select start from now on. So that's done. Now if we go to Airtable, what we should now see appear is the resume details. So we have the name of the candidate, their email address, their LinkedIn, their recent job title, their recent employer, their key achievement, their key skill, the recent education place, the recent education course, their location, the resume, and the relevancy score. So it scored it 52 out of 100. Now, if you did want to take this a step further, what you could actually do, again, all in make.com. So I'm just going to switch back to make now that you've seen this is working. Go back to make. What you could do is actually extend this project. And that's a big part about what I'm going to be doing at 15hours.com, as well as showing you builds which will be prepared, not unscripted, which will be prepared so you'll be able to walk through in a lot more clear fashion. Or if you'd like these unscripted versions, just let me know. So sorry, what you could do is extend it. So what I mean by that is that with the relevancy score, you'd then be able to define whether you want to schedule an interview with this person and take this kind of, let's say, MVP of an ATS system a step further. So you could create, let's say if they have the Calendly. I believe there's Calendly. Yep, so they have Calendly. So there should be a situation in where you can add Calendly to the end of this automation, maybe before the creator record runs, and check whether it meets a certain relevance score. So for example, if you were hiring for that role, you might say, okay, anyone that has a relevancy score of over 70, schedule them for an interview, or email them with a Calendly link so they can schedule the call, and you will be able to do that. And that's an addition to this project, and that's something that's a big part of 15 hours for me, that I want to do and take forward if we have enough interest, is that to show you builds, but then also show you and explain step by step in a written format. So you have the video of the build, but then in a written format, explain to you how to extend them, just so then you can build that muscle of really using AI and automation to kind of level up. Now that's done. So let me just open this. And as I said, I wanted to show you what the outputs look like. So as we can see, if we click on messages and we just open it, we can see all the information that we input, so the content that we input. And as you can see here, we obviously put in the variables and that got populated. And then we can also see the output, the choices, if we go into messages, and we can see it gave us a relevant score that's in the Airtable as you saw. Now, as I mentioned a few times, we couldn't see as we were building the data that was held in variables. But if we just go back to one of these API calls, maybe let's go to Analyze Images Vision. Now you'll be able to see, as you can see, the data that's in those variables. And if we just go to Create Chat Completion, you'll see what appeared in the previous OpenAI API calls. So I'm just going to click here, and here you go. So you can see the data that's being held in those variables. So if you ever do get stuck, or if there's things you actually want to change, or if you find that there's other variables that you want to include but you didn't know what it meant, or what data was held in it, you can come back to this and go through them and include them. So yeah, I hope you found that tutorial helpful. It might have rambled on a bit in some parts, but I wanted to do this unscripted simply because, well, I like building stuff and I thought, why not now, this evening? And I also wanted to test demand before I start creating what I'm calling the 100 days of AI videos. So this is a test. If I get 1,000 subscribers, then I'll be creating those videos and they're going to be completely free. I believe this education, this technology should be open to everyone because of how impactful it is. I don't believe it should be paywalled. So yeah, I want to test the demand, and if, like I said, if you enjoyed this video, no pressure, please subscribe. And once we hit that magic 1,000, I'll send you all a very nice thank you email and start creating the structured videos with the extended parts to each one. And like I said, if you prefer the unscripted parts, or if you want the bloopers included, you just have to let me know. But yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in another video